Hello, everyone. I'm so happy here with another exciting session with Javier. And today, I hope you are doing well. And today we have some news before the session is a start. The end of the session, we have a discount voucher for all participants. You can ask your question end of the session from Javier, and we selected the best question, and the voucher exam discount is a 15% for fundamental and advanced exam, Microsoft exam. Also, we have two cool session about the Microsoft Fabric. Follow us from our social media, and we will share some information about these two sessions about the Microsoft Fabric. And also, we have one interesting news, and it's a surprise. We will share soon about this interesting news. Today we have Javier here for he wants to talk about the Azure SQL database management instance. Before he start the session, let me share some slide with you about the Microsoft Learn community. We are part of Microsoft Learn community, Microsoft Zero. You can join to Microsoft Learn community. There are a lot of content for learning. You can ask your question from expert, and there are learning content based off your role, based off the certification, and your topic. You can join from aka.ms Microsoft Learn community. Also, we publish a July calendar, and as you see, there are a lot of sessions. You can register all of them, and the previous session, all of the uploaded on our YouTube channel. You can watch them. And the last slide is about our code of conduct. Be aware of others, be friendly and passionate, be welcoming and respectful, be open to all questions and viewpoints, be understanding of different, be kind and considerate to others in the chat, in the question, and so on. Yeah, the time is to add Javier to a stage. Hello. Hello, Javier. Do you hear me? I think he's disconnected. We are waiting. He rejoin again to the session. Before the session, I talked with Javier about the topic. He shared me about some topic of this session about the AI and interesting demo presentation. And I think this topic and the content is very interesting. Let me add again. Hello, Javier.
Hello. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Glad to be here. Of course, when you were presenting, my machine got a blue screen, so I had to start.
Yeah.
It's some of the things that we, the presenters and the speaker, we are kind of used to, right?
I know. Yeah. I mean, before you join to the stage, I talked with all guys about your topic for this session about the AI, Azure SQL, management instance, and so on. And yeah, the time stage is yours. You can start your presentation. Let me add your screen. Yeah.
Here we are. All right. Thank you so much for the invitation. I love the Microsoft Zero to Hero community. I follow a lot what you've been doing, and every activity related to community, related to Azure, and in my case, regarding to data platform is something that I try to to spread the word and be part of. So again, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you
So
for your presentation or accept our invite.
sure, sure.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
okay, the idea today is to talk about Azure SQL, right? And specifically one of my preference, which is Azure SQL Managed Instance. Let's try to dig a little bit what it is, what it means, what are the different flavors, and how we can compare um, Azure SQL Managed Instance with the other, component of the Azure SQL umbrella, right? SQL Server and Azure SQL Database, right? So that is why I named this session "The Evolution of SQL Server as a Service, Azure SQL Managed Instance." So a little bit about me. My name is Javier Villegas. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I work at Mediterranean Shipping Company, and I've been involved with data platforms since around 30 years. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the data platform category, a Microsoft certified trainer. Recently, I got my certification on Microsoft Fabric, and I'm one of the former member of the Azure Data Community Advisory Council. Also, consider myself a technical speaker. I'm part of the PAS community. I'm one of the leaders of our local community here, SQL Argentina, in where we have our meetings, our meetup in Spanish. So if you feel comfortable with the Spanish, you are free to join us and more than welcome. Right. On the left side of the screen, you have all my contact information. I'm pretty much active in X and LinkedIn. I also leave you there my blog and my email address in case you have a question regarding to this presentation or if you just want to network with me. Mm. All right, Azure SQL, right? What is this? Well, the marketing phrase from Microsoft, which I actually support, is it's just SQL, right? But we have multiple options now, especially in the cloud era, right? First of all, we've been working with SQL Server since actually 30 years. Last year, it was the 30th anniversary of Microsoft SQL on Windows, right? So we started with the old version. I don't even want to remember. And nowadays we have SQL Server 2022, right? That is the one that we've been using in our data centers, in our laptops to work as we've been working the last several years, right? Now that we have Azure, right, the cloud solution, the cloud provider for multiple product and services, we have this new umbrella called Azure SQL. Right? One of the components of Azure SQL is SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine. Right? What is this? Basically, this is the same SQL Server that we've been using, right? In 2012, 2014, up to 2019, 2022, right? But running on Azure virtual machines, right? What is the benefit of this? Well, first of all, is in the cloud, right? And we will see that the moment that we create one of of these virtual machines with SQL on it, right? We have this benefit of using something that is called the marketplace, meaning that we just select the operating system, the version, and the edition of the SQL Server that we want, and boom, we just get it there. And the most interesting part of it is that there are multiple configurations that are coming from the best practices, right, from Microsoft and from the community on how to configure SQL Server that are already part of this setup, so we don't have to worry of certain things that, before, when we just got the installer and we just hit next, 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 finish during the installation, and we put our production, application or database, right? After a little while, we were getting some, performance problem. Now, not all of them, but I would say the most important one regarding to the best practices are already pre-configured in this offering, right? SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machines. This is the bucket that Microsoft called infrastructure as a service, right? What is this? Well, first of all, right, we need to take care of everything in this case. What is everything? We need to take care of the operating system, of the virtual machine, on the networking, the authentication with Azure Active Directory. If we want to accomplish high availability and disaster recovery, we have to spin up another virtual machine, generate the clusters, the always-on configuration, etc., etc., etc. This is exactly the same as we've been doing in our data center, right? When there is a new patch to be applied, either for Windows or for SQL, we need to do it ourselves manually, right? Um, so this is quite similar to what we have nowadays, right? In where we take care of everything. Then there is this bucket in between called platform as a service, right? And over there we have two components, right? Azure SQL Database and Azure SQL Managed Instance, which is the one that we're going to talk and we're going to focus this presentation, right? But Azure SQL Database, first of all, what it is SQL Server as a service, meaning that what Microsoft's going to give us, right, is just an endpoint, right, in where we're going to connect our application and we will deploy our tables, store procedure. We're going to get the data, the relationship, etc., etc., etc. Right? But we don't need to take care of anything that is behind of it, the infrastructure behind the thing, right? So we don't have to maintain any server, any patching or anything like that, because Microsoft take care of it, right? So it's just a service. Azure SQL Database was one of the first services available in the Microsoft Azure platform when it got released many years ago, right? Of course, it has evolved tremendously since those days, right? But it's still there. But then you can tell me why we have two flavors, Azure SQL Database and Managed Instance. What is the difference between one and each other, right? Well, Azure SQL Database is basically targeted to modern cloud applications, right? And why is that? And then you will understand it a little bit more. But one of the most specific settings or characteristic of Azure SQL Database is that everything that you have for your database and for your application has to live within the same user database. What is that? For the one that we've been working with SQL for years, and we have maybe legacy applications, we can have within SQL Server multiple databases, multiple tables in each user database, and multiple store procedures. And if we need to, let's say, join data from tables or views that are on different user databases, we can, just reference the database name, the schema, and the table. So, we can do any kind of join for all the databases within my SQL Server instance. Of course, we need to have the proper permission, right? In Azure SQL Database, that is not possible. Everything has to live, all the tables that you want to join have to live within the same user databases. So you cannot, access data that is on a different table. Is this a limitation? I would say no. It's as I said, a characteristic of the service, right? And again, it's targeted to modern cloud application, right? There are many other differences with the Azure SQL database and what it is SQL Server. For example, there is no SQL Server agent, right? So you cannot set up scheduled tasks or activities as we do on SQL Server. There are many other Azure components that will allow you to do this, right? But not within the SQL Server instance. So when people start seeing that Azure SQL Database as a service was really good, because again, we don't need to take care of the platform behind the scene, and that give us a lot of benefit because we just focus on the business, on the development and the application, and nothing related to the infrastructure. They People were saying, community and professional were so excited and saying, "Hey, listen, this is good, but I would like to have something more similar that SQL Server as we know it, right? With SQL Server Agent and with all the components, all the same, parity with SQL Server, but as a service." And that is when Microsoft came up with Azure SQL Managed Instance. That we will see that is almost 100% compatible with SQL Server box or SQL Server product, right? But with the benefit of having as a service. Again, we don't need to worry about the OS, the networking, the high availability, disaster recovery. No, everything is out of the box, right? And we have almost one-to-one parity with SQL Server, right? So that is managed instance, and we will try to focus on it on this presentation. And then there is another component, which is Azure SQL Edge, which allow us to run SQL Server on an ARM device, like, for example, one of these, Raspberry Pi, right? We can have SQL Server, we can connect with Management Studio here, right? And we can have our user database, we can store data, and we can process it, right? Of course, it is for certain specific scenarios like edge environment, in where, for example, we collect data from sensors, we store it, and we process. We won't put our mission critical decision making application on these devices, on this SQL Server, but it is available, and is something really good to have it as a possibility, right? So then we have several questions to be asked, right? So we are in the situation in where we need to modernize our database infrastructure, right? So we have multiple options, but I will say that at the end of the day, moving to a cloud environment is the right way to go. So when we take the decision and we say, hey, we are ready to move on, we want to move our SQL servers, maybe old version of SQL Server, to something modern in the Azure cloud, well, we need to start this journey, right? So we have to ask ourselves this question: do I really need to take care of the infrastructure behind the scene? Do I need to have this control on the patching of the networking, on taking care of the backups and everything that we've been doing nowadays? Or I can go to an option as platform as a service, in where we just focus on the development, on the application, the database, and then Microsoft take care of the rest, right? So we will see that there are multiple approaches to do the initial migration, right? We also mentioned the option of infrastructure as a service, a virtual machine running SQL Server, which is the same SQL Server that we've been using so far. So the migration, the first migration step to a virtual machine could make sense, right? And then at some point, we can decide to move to managed instance, right? So what is then a managed instance? Is a new capability in Azure SQL Database, is almost 100% compatible with SQL Server, and then we will see why it's almost and it's not 100%, right? Which initially came with the possibility of being a private environment within our infrastructure, meaning that it was not presented to outside, to other Azure services, or even to the internet, right? So initially it was just to have managed instance in the cloud, right? In the Microsoft cloud, and then we have to set up virtual VPNs, right? Or a private network connectivity just to connect to that SQL server on the cloud, right? But it was just to extend and move our databases. Then, there were some changes that um, optionally allow us to present our or integrate managed instance in the cloud with other Azure services, right? And we will see uh, the reason for doing that, and even with the internet, right? Yeah, it is similar to, for example, Azure SQL Database. Uh, you have the possibility from day one to expose the Azure SQL Database to internet, right? We can have a huge discussion here to see if it is recommended or not, but at least you have the possibility, right? So when we decide to move to Azure, as I was saying before, maybe the initial option is use something more lift and shift, which is I get what I have in my on-premise environment and I move it as is to uh, Azure. And the best option to do that is a virtual machine. But then, if we have the possibility and we would like to explore and have all the benefit of platform as a service of PaaS, right? We need to use um, or migrate that virtual machine to a managed instance. Instead, if we are planning to build a brand new application that requires uh, a relational database as a backend, definitely Azure SQL database should be the preferred option. All right. We're going to dig into that a little bit more. So, all right, we move our database infrastructure to Azure, to the cloud. So, what are the benefits that we have over there? Well, first of all, right, we have all the possibilities of business continuity and high availability, right? We know that on our SQL Server environment on premise, I won't say that it's impossible to do that, but to accomplish high availability and disaster recovery is a complex task, right? If we want to achieve disaster recovery, we need to have a secondary data center on a different location. We have to have the network connectivity properly. We have to set up another SQL server and set up availability groups always on to have our databases in sync, right? If we want to achieve high availability, meaning that, if we have a problem with our main SQL server and we need to go back in business right away, we will need to set up some sort of a cluster with an additional node. And again, those are more servers to put there and configure. This is how we've been doing it since forever, right? But now with Azure SQL, this is way, way easier because in some cases, especially in platform as a service, just achieving high availability and disaster recovery is one click, right? Then another benefit is everything that is related to backups, right? We know that for every DBA, taking care of the backups is something that we must do, of course, right? But is time consuming, right? And it has a lot of responsibilities behind. So we have to set up the proper backup strategy, put it in place, test it, validate it, etc., etc., etc. In Azure SQL, right? All this is one click. It's automatic. The Azure SQL platform take care of the backups for you. You just configure it once and it's go there automatically, right? Something also super important is the retention of those backups, right? Because you can configure the amount of data that you can keep those backups, right? In order to, have it stored somewhere. And also super important is the sheer replication for those backups. What is that? If we go back again to the on-premise environment, we know that in order to set up a proper backup strategy, we have to get the backups and we have to store those backups on a different location, right? Not on the same building in where we have the the production SQL Server. Why is that? Because if, for example, there is a natural disaster and we lose the whole building, we're also going to lose the backups. So we won't have the possibility to reach them, right? So the best practice is that you have to get a copy of those backups and store it on a different location. Within Azure SQL, within the automate backups option, right? Microsoft is also giving you the opportunity to do the backup to an storage account, to an Azure storage account, and automatically share replicate it to a different location. So you're going to have multiple copies of your backups, right, in at least two locations. So in case something happened to a Microsoft Azure region, right, you have the secondary location to go and get those backups, right? And this is, again, something super simple, a couple of clicks. Another set of benefit of the Azure SQL platform, and basically the one that I like the most probably, is the scalability, right? Go back 1 minute to the on-premise environment in where we maybe configure a specific SQL server with a certain amount of CPU, memory, disk, etc. And we say, okay, maybe this is for the application that we believe that is going to run forever, maybe it's going to grow this or that. So we try to measure as good as possible, but we set, the server and it is kind of a static. Let's say that in the future our business go super well and our application becomes more and more overloaded, right? And we need to scale. Scale an on-premise service, again, it's not impossible, right? But it's a little bit complex and time consuming. We have to get in touch with the vendor. We have to get the CPU. We have to get the additional memory, the faster disk. We have to plan the downtime, put the new hardware on it, and just put it in there, right? This could take several weeks, right? Since we start this process until we get it done. In Azure SQL, right, this is a simple click, which is go to the Azure portal, we define the new capabilities that we need for our existing Azure SQL environment, more CPU, more memory, faster disk, bigger disk, etc. And we just make few clicks and we scale our environment up. This is also possible if eventually we need to scale down the environment. Let's say that we don't need those resources anymore. We can, scale down our environment. Right? So, for example, if you are in a business that maybe for Christmas or any other big event during the year, you have peaks and that your application will be overloaded, you can put more resources, use them for those seasons, and then put it back. And again, in the on-premise environment, this is super, super complex, right? The security, all the security for SQL Server Assist that we know that is the relational database with less flaws or less security problems over the last many years, right? It's the same, but with all the benefit and all the advanced security within the Azure platform, right? So this is also super important to take care of. Versionless, and again, this is an interesting concept for Azure SQL. In the SQL Server environment, we have major version, right? We said 2016, 17, 19, 2022. Every time we need to migrate from one version to the other, we have to plan it properly. We have to come up with a different environment, validate that our application works well with the new SQL Server version, etc., etc., etc. In Azure SQL Database and Azure SQL Managed Instance, there are no versions. It's versionless. So you just go and check, and it's Azure SQL, period. Not version at all, right? So you don't have this complexity of going from one version to the other with all this validation. It's all in there for you, right? Does it mean that it is static and there are no changes and no uh, innovation and better features in Azure SQL because it's always the same version? Absolutely not. It's the other way around, actually. Microsoft first go to Azure SQL DB and manage instance to put the new features, and then when they release a major SQL Server version, right, they take those features and put it in there. So it's an interesting concept just to consider it and as a benefit, right? And then everything that is related to monitoring and intelligence within SQL Server, right? As I said at the beginning, it's just SQL. So all the knowledge that you have in terms of administration, in terms of performance tuning and troubleshooting remains the same. So all that is available for you as well, right? So then again, managed instance, nearly 100% like SQL Server. So we have almost everything. And what is that? Well, first of all, we can take care of the backup and restore if eventually we need it, right? Log shipping. In terms of programmability, we have temporary table, sharp table, cross database transaction, right? And like Azure SQL database, we can have multiple databases within managed instance, and we can do, join between tables under different user databases. Same as in SQL Server. We can also have link servers if we need it. In terms of security, TDE, SQL audited, row level security, always encrypted. That is the same. In the operational area, dynamic management views and function, extended event, query store, SQL Server agent, database mail. So same as in SQL Server, right? And then if eventually we need service broker, change data capture, or transactional replication is also available in managed instance. Additionally, we have the possibility of changing the compatibility mode of the databases as we need, right? Same as in SQL Server. Why is not 100% compatible with SQL Server? And here there is a feature that is available on SQL Server and it is not in managed instance, which is file stream and file table, right? Those are features available in SQL Server product, right? In where you can store files in your file system, and then from a user database and using Transact SQL, you can go there and query those files, right? Since this is a platform as a service offering and you don't have control over your storage, over your infrastructure, these features are not available at all. That is mainly why, if you have an application with a database that nowadays use file stream or file table, you may need to rewrite this application to use another methodology to store and handle, the files, right? For everything else, is mainly a lift and shift. So you get your backup, right? And you restore it to a managed instance with absolutely no problem. Mm. So how do we define or how we manage an MI, a managed instance, right? First of all, we need to be aware that there are different service tiers. And there are actually two. One of them is called general purpose, in where Microsoft is telling us that most of the business workloads runs perfectly fine on it. But if eventually we need to have uh, we have workload or applications that require lower latency, especially on the I/O, on the storage, and additional read-only replica, there is this service tier called business critical. Both of them are based on the virtual code core model, meaning that we choose how many virtual cores we need for our managed instance. And as I said earlier, right, if eventually we need to move from 4 virtual core to 16, we can do it super easily, right? The biggest difference between general purpose and business critical is on the storage. In general purpose, the storage is remote, while in business critical, you have a combination of local storage with remote storage. That is how business critical can accomplish lower disk latency, right? Here, there are some numbers of on difference between one and the other, one tier and the other, general purpose versus business critical, in terms of different IOPS and latency. Mainly, you see that here in IO latency, in general purpose, you have between 5 and 10 milliseconds, while in business critical, you have between 1 and 2, right? So, uh, as I said at the beginning, you have here in this chart, you will see something, a couple of things actually. When you deploy a managed instance, right, by default, you have a virtual cluster with 3 components, 3 nodes, let's say, right? For you, it's only one. So you just connect to your managed instance. But behind the scene, there is a synchronization between these 3 nodes, and if something happened to one of them, you continue with the business with absolutely no problem, because again, it doesn't matter which one is the active one, right? And this is how managed instances accomplish high availability, right? For you, it's only one, but behind the scenes are 3. And then the different connectivity option that you have is that initially, as I said, you have to set up either peering, which is connect your local network to this managed instance subnet or virtual network with either peering or express route, and this way you connect your on-premise infrastructure or your application to managed instance, right? Then we will see that there is an option which is disabled by default to present the managed instance to internet if eventually you need to do it, right? What is also super interesting is that you have the possibility, having managed instance in the cloud, to integrate it with other cloud services, other Azure offerings super easily, right? So let's say if your architecture requires not only a relational database with the managed instance, but also requires an analysis services, cognitive services, Microsoft Fabric, or anything in the cloud, right? You have it there, you have it integrated, so it's super easy to build an application end to end that may include a relational database, right? All right. How do we migrate our existing environment to Azure, and specifically to managed instance? We just said that one of the options is a simple backup and restore, right? So we take a backup on the existing database, we store it in an Azure storage account, and then we restore it there super easy, right? But Microsoft also help us to decide whether we need to do an assessment of our existing application, see if eventually we can move it just perform this validation, and then will help us to choose whether we use a virtual machine, a managed instance, or eventually an Azure SQL database. And there are 3 options to do it. One of them is a service which is called Azure Migrate, right? Then within the Azure Data Studio application, there is an extension called Azure SQL Migration Extension, which help us to do this assessment to make sure that there are no blockers to do the migration, and then will help us to do the migration to the destination. And then we have offerings within PowerShell and Azure CLI, right? So as we've been doing in every single migration of or upgrade, this is not just lift and shift. You have to test it, you have to try, and you have to validate it. So first of all, we have to do the assessment, make sure that there are no blockers. We do the actual migration with the service, with the Azure Migrate service, for example. And then when we are on our new environment and the virtual machine, managed instance, or Azure SQL DB, we need to optimize, right, in order to, take advantage of the new benefits, right, and then make sure that our environment is secure, right. So this is a reminder of how we've been doing the migration. So there are pre-migration tasks, the migration itself, and everything related to the post-migration. So we make sure that our application is rock solid in after we move it to Azure. There is also within Azure Migrate the possibility of doing multiple migration types. What is this mainly, right? Well, first of all, there are two types of migration, as I would like to call it, the offline and the online migration. The offline migration is when you have the possibility to go out of business for 2, 3, 4 hours, one day, and you do the actual migration, and there is no problem you doing the migration and taking all this time. The other migration, right, is when you don't have this benefit and you have to be up and running as soon as possible, and you don't have not even 10 minutes to be down, right? So for that, Azure Migrate service help you to synchronize both of the environment with some sort of log shipping replication behind the scene, and when you are ready to do the switch, you just modify the connection string in your application, and boom, you are there, right? Then we will see it in action in a minute, the Azure Migration Extension, what we can do with that. We're good with the time. Yes. We will see that within Azure Data Studio, there is a free extension that we just go and download. And with that, we are ready to do the assessment and do the actual migration. One of the easiest way to do the migration, as I said, is the backup restore option, right? So we have our SQL Server on premise. We just need to migrate the system object, right? Master SQL shops, etc., etc. We need to take a backup of the user databases, have them in a storage account, and then just restore those backups into managed instance super easily. And eventually, if we need to do it with an online option, we have the managed restore to do it for us, right? Okay, something super important to have in mind as well is that when we get the SQL Server installation media, we don't only have SQL Server, the relational engine, right? We also have SSIS, integration services. We have SSRS, reporting services, and we have SSAS, analysis services, right? I would like to, emphasize that managed instance is only the SQL Server, the relational engine. It's not any of these components, right? But if we need to take advantage of those components because our project required them, etc., we have an alternative, right? For integration services, there is another service in Azure called Azure Data Factory, right? So we can easily migrate our SSIS packages into ADF, Data Factory. For reporting services, well, we all know Power BI, right, which is the way to do business intelligence and generate reports and dashboards in the cloud. For analysis services, there are two type of installations, right, or two type of model on the analysis services world. One is the multidimensional model, right, and the other one is tabular model. For multidimensional models, Microsoft does not have a service in Azure to have it, right? So if eventually you still have databases cubed in multidimensional data model, you have to spin up virtual machine and install the same analysis services that you have before. But instead, if you're using something more modern, which are tabular models, right, there is a service called Azure Analysis Services, which is kind of similar to managed instance, right? It's analysis services as tabular, right? But as a service, right? You don't need to worry about the infrastructure behind the thing, right? So you just put your cubes over there and you just, boom, work on your business analysis, business intelligence without worrying about the infrastructure behind the thing, right? So moving on, we now have certain features that are not valid anymore. For example, always on availability groups, right? We just saw that, internally, those are three instances that are handled by themselves. So we don't have the possibility of ourselves setting up availability groups. Backup and restore it, even if we can use them, right? It's not necessary because Microsoft is taking care of those for us, right? Um, Features that are completely returned, well, database mirroring, a long time ago, that is not available in SQL Server, not available in managed instance as well, and the possibility of using extended store procedures. Now we should use CLR. How we can identify that we are, on a managed instance or Azure SQL? Well, if we do select add version instead of seeing SQL Server 2022, right? We will see that is Microsoft SQL Azure, and there are no versions, right? This is something that is evolving every month. There are a ton of features that are changing and evolving since day one, right? More cores, better hardware generation, more powerful processors, and a lot of things that are coming constantly. I'm enumerating here all the ones coming since day one, right? That transparent data encryption with bring your own key, Geo distribute failover availability group. You can configure retention for bunch of data, etc., etc., etc. So features coming constantly. Also, this capability that was not ready at the beginning, and then because of the people requesting it, right? We have as an optional possibility to create or to publish a managed instance to internet, right? So we avoid all the complexity of the networking, and we just push it through internet, and we connect from outside, right? At the beginning, also, it was not possible to change the time zones. Now, when we do the deployment of the managed instance, time zone is available as well. Same for trace flags. Trace flags are component within SQL Server that you can, just change the behavior of SQL Server. Now, not all of them, but some of them are available in managed instance as well. Something super important as well that is GA, general available for every managed instance available. This what is called November 2022 feature wave. Right? This was a big improvement within the managed instance infrastructure, because at the beginning when you create the managed instance, it was always up and running, right? So the it was 24 by 7, right? Always up, right? Now we have the possibility of starting and stopping the managed instance in case we, for example, don't need it during the night or in the weekends or something like that. And with that, we don't pay for the compute, but we only pay for the storage, right? So now we have this possibility and it's available everywhere, right? So we can start and stop the instance. We also have DTC, Distribute Transaction Coordinator, right? Which at the beginning it was not available. And there is this other thing called fast instance provisioning, right? At the beginning, every time that we have to create a managed instance, we have to wait around 6 hours, right, to have it ready. Now, within 15, 30 minutes, the managed instance will be provisioned for us, right? Now, this is general available, right? And now, as preview, right? Microsoft is giving us what they call next generation of general purpose service tier for managed instance, which is currently in preview, right? Which give us more granularity on the storage. We can configure the storage even better, right? One of the initial limitation on managed instance is that you can have up to 100 user databases. Now with this new flavor, we can have up to 500, right? So this is constantly moving on and giving us more possibilities to work with managed instance, right? So is something that is in preview. We will see it now in action, and we'll see that now we have more storage, we have more granularity in IOPS, we have better processing, we have more memory available, etc., etc., etc. Right? So bunch of things coming, right? In terms of security, in terms of performance, better hardware, etc., etc., etc. And something important to mention that is now generally available is that until not so long ago, you didn't have the possibility of getting involved or start testing managed instance for free. You have to have an Azure subscription, you have to put your credit card, and you use it, you pay for it. Right? Now you can have a managed instance with certain limitation, but you have it for you, right? For a year, for 12 months, right? And for free. So this is super cool because you can validate your environment, you can start getting involved too, and you can try your migration with that right away, absolutely for free. Mhm. By the way, the same is for Azure SQL Database. All right, so let's see managed instance in action. Mhm. All right, here I have my virtual machine. I am connected to my Azure portal with my credentials, right? And up here I have Azure SQL. When we go to Azure SQL, I have all the components that I already have created, right? But let's say I want to create a new Azure SQL. So I go up here to create, right? And you will see that we have the three main possibilities here: Azure SQL Database, Azure SQL Virtual Machine, right? And here, when we go and say image, we can choose the operating system, the edition, and the version of SQL Server, right? And we see that up here we have SQL Server 2022 running on Windows Server 2022, Developer Edition, Enterprise Edition, Standard Edition. As you may know, SQL Server since 2017 also runs on the major Linux distributions, so Red Hat, SUSE, and Ubuntu. So we can also choose Linux, right? And we can go back. We have SQL Server 2019. And if we go down, we have 17, 16, and if we go to the bottom, we also have up to 2020 and up to 2012, right? With Windows Server 2012 R2, right? Hopefully nobody's using it because it's not supported, right? But if you have it, you have the possibility in there. And then under manage instance, we're gonna create one managed instance. We come up with the wizard that will help us to create the managed instance. See here, as I was telling before, right? We now have the possibility of try managed instance for free, right? So super cool. You can apply to the offer for free. It is in preview, but you can use it freely, right? So first of all, right, I will filter everything to the regions in where I have available the November 2022 feature wave, right? So, okay, I don't want to use the original managed instance, just want to make sure that I can use all the capabilities, right? I have to select a resource group, right? Or create a new one. I have to specify a name of for my managed instance, let's call it SQL MI 001. It's going to validate if it is in use or not. Is it in use? So I will use 02. It's also taken. Okay, 03 is available, right? We have to choose the Azure region, right? Ideally close to where you have deployed your, in where you are located, right? We choose US Central. Um, Down here, we have the option of compute and storage. So I will go here and configure the managed instance, all right? So as I was saying before, I want to enable my next generation general purpose features. So I will choose enable here, right? So I choose general purpose. I will hit apply here. So I go back. So I can choose the hardware generation, right? Standard, premium series, or premium series memory optimized, the amount of virtual cores, right? Let's choose 4. The storage in gigabyte, right? See here that we cannot choose how many disk, the drive letter, the paths. No, it's the total storage and the IOPS that we would like to have for the storage, right? As you can see here, there is no possibility of choosing the amount of memory, right? But if we go up here, it's telling us that depending on the hardware generation for the CPU that we choose, we will have, for example, in standard series, 1.5, 5.1 gigabyte per virtual core, right? If instead we choose premium series, we have 7 gigabyte per core up to 560. And if we choose memory optimized, we have 13.6 gigabyte per B core. So if we choose 4, we have to multiply 4 by the one we select, and if we choose 80, the same, right? So it's not something that we choose the memory, so it's going to be depending on the hardware generation that we pick, right? Here we select, if we want both, SQL authentication, uh, uh, Microsoft Entra ID or Active Direct, Microsoft Active Directory authentication, or both, right? In this case, I will choose only SQL authentication. I have to specify the SA login. I will put it Javier here, for example, right? And I have to specify a password and repeat it here. So once it's there, note that here you will have an estimated cost, right? This is expressed in Argentinian pesos, right? So when we're done here, we hit next, we go to networking. Um, I will say that I want to create the public endpoint, right? And I want to expose it to internet, the TLS version. Then we go security. We can enable Microsoft SQL Defender, which is a service that will check all our workload and try to find out if there is any security risk, or if we are being hacked, or someone running something that may impact on our servers, right? Transparent data encryption if we have our own keys. Additional additional settings. We have the collation, right? We can change the collation here. We can change the time zone. Let's see. I'll put here city of Buenos Aires, right? If eventually we have to have it geo replication, so to set up disaster recovery, right? We should select yes. And if we have another managed instance on a different location, as I do, we can specify it here. And this is everything we have to do to have disaster recovery. In this case, I will select no, right? Um, then we finish with the tax option, just for management purpose. Final step is review and create. There's going to be a validation here. We get all in here. We have the final price, and when we are ready to create it, we just hit create, and in 15 minutes, half an hour, we're going to have it ready, right? If eventually we need to create more than one managed instance, we can download the template, right? And then use it to automate it and create it more than one super easily. Otherwise, we had to go one by one with all the wizard, etc., and do it this way, right? So I won't create this managed instance. I will show you one that is already created, right? First of all, let's go back to here. Let me duplicate the tab so we don't lose this one. And I will go to an existing managed instance, right, that I have. So I go back home. I go to my managed instance MI test. And here, I have the management option. I have all the details, the connection string. I can stop it and start it from here, right? I can see the CPU utilization over the last hour, 24 hours, 7 days. I can see the databases that I have. When was the last backup? Everything. We just see it here. We can eventually schedule and stop or restart. We can go to compute and storage, as I said, right? And eventually, assign more virtual cores, more this space, etc. And we just hit apply, and it's gonna, take some time, and we're gonna have the new setting with my same user databases. Nothing's gonna change. So we're scaling up, super easily, right? This is MI test, my test MI001. So here I'm connected with Management Studio, and here I'm connected to actually the three offerings of Azure SQL. I have my managed instance at the top. I have a virtual machine running SQL Server here, and I have an Azure SQL database, right? As you can see, let's zoom it. Each offering has its own icon here, so we can easily identify this is managed instance, this is SQL Server, and this is Azure SQL database. So from here, we just go expand the databases. We see same as SQL Server, tables, options, etc. We have, excuse me, SQL Server agent down here with the SQL shops, similar to the virtual machine, but for Azure SQL database there are less uh, options here, right? If eventually we want to do a migration, right, I have here my virtual machine, right, running SQL Server. I have Azure Data Studio with the Azure Migration extension. I can just go here and hit migrate to Azure SQL, and we're gonna get the wizard to select the databases that we want to migrate. So we just hit here, and then it's going to do the validation if we want to move to Azure SQL database, to manage instance, or the virtual machine. And here you see we have the warnings, right? These are not, I mean, these are warnings. There are some cases in where there are blockers, so meaning that you cannot do it, and it will tell you exactly what you need to do in order to bypass those blockers. So it won't fix the problem for you, but it will give you all the recommendations for you to do it properly. And then when you are done, you just rerun this wizard again, and boom, you move on, right? Okay, so this is mainly everything that I wanted to show you. Let's go back to the presentation. I leave you here with a QR code for you to go to all the documentation available for Azure SQL and MI, right? So here we just try to go to the overall, the introduction of what it is. But if you want to go deeper on what you can do with managed instance, this is the way to go. And with that, we just finish the presentation. I hope you useful. Again, my contact information here, and well, we just finish it.
Thank you, Javier. Very good presentation and also the demo. And we had two comment or question. I will share and add on the stage.
Mhm.
Let me. The first one is about the pricing.
What's the difference between price of these services? Well, in terms of pricing, is a wide range. Every single this is what I say. If you move your sliders to the right, you may have to get more money, right? And there are a lot of variables for pricing, right? It's not the same a managed service, a PaaS than infrastructure as a service. It's not the same a general purpose tier than a business critical. If you have more CPU, if you have more disk, everything may govern the price depending on your needs. Right? It is interesting because in most of the cases right now, you also have the possibility to eventually, if you are not using it, you just stop it, and you don't pay for the compute at all. You can shut down a virtual machine, you can stop an Azure SQL DB, and you can stop a managed instance, as we just saw it, right? In Azure SQL DB, you also have this concept of serverless, meaning that if you don't use, if you're not connecting for an X amount of hours, minutes, or whatever you define, the service go to sleep, right? So, and you don't pay for the compute. You always pay for storage, right? But not for the compute. And then when you try to reconnect, it's gonna, in a matter of few seconds, it's gonna provision the compute again, and everything's gonna be there for you. Every single option over there for every single component, even a single IOPS on a disk, may have a different price, right? For everything, when you are creating it, you have the estimate all the time in where you're going to get an idea of the total cost at the end of the month, right? But yes, that the pricing thing is a whole different story. By the way, there is also a link. I don't remember the link right now, but if you go and check online, the Azure cost calculator, right? You can, before just doing anything, you can get, depending on your region, depending if it is a SQL Server, a managed instance, or Azure SQL DB, and all the settings that you may have to enter in this calculator, you will get the estimated cost as well.
Yeah, nice. I added the Azure cost calculator on the
Okay,
comment on the
great.
chat,
Thanks.
and guys can use. And the last question is this one.
Which Microsoft exam certification would you inform apply to? I have the fundamental certification, but moving through certification. But okay, so uh, for the data platform certifications in Microsoft, you have the one that are called DP, right? Data platform, right? The
Mhm.
fundamentals, Scott, I believe it is that you took the 900, right, for every category, AI, development, even data platform. The 900 exam is the fundamental, right? But then the one I heavily recommend to everyone, right, because it covers all Azure SQL, is the DP 300, right, which is for administration on Azure SQL DB, in where you will be covering uh, everything, right? Especially from the administration purpose for managed instance, for database, and for MI. Is That's the one I do recommend. And recently there is something new which is called Apply Skills, right? Which is
Yeah,
for free and it's part of the Microsoft Learn, in where you will have around 2 hours to do a hands-on activity related to an Azure SQL DB migration, right? You will have to migrate a single table from a SQL server to an Azure SQL DB. You may have to, copy a database from a backup. There are multiple things to do. You have 2 hours. Is, as I said, for free, and at the end of the process, is you're gonna get a score, and you will pass it or not, or and you will get this what is called apply skill. Let me see if but I mean, if you go online and you check apply skills, Microsoft Learn, apply skill, Azure SQL, you're gonna get there, right? uh,
yeah,
I guarantee that it's not easy, right? Uh, First time I saw it, I say, "Oh, this is piece of cake," and oh, I have plenty of time, 2 hours. And let me tell you, it's not as easy as it seems, right? There are a lot of activities that you have to do, and the intention is to validate hands-on experience, right, with and migration to Azure SQL. Mm.
nice. And Javier, which question you select as a winner?
I will select the first one, right, related to the pricing.
Hmm.
Definitely is something that is super important, right? Pricing is I will say that uh, a gray area, because you may get you may have a budget to do it, so it's important. The certification part is also a good question, definitely, but I will pick the one related to pricing.
Nice. So early, please send us the message for exam voucher. Thanks again, Javier, for your
Sure.
presentation, and thanks for all guys for joining this session.
Thank you so much. Have a
Bye
good
bye.
rest of the day.